Welcome to the Your Take podcast. Welcome on into a special edition of the Your Take podcast. I'm Benj. Today is the start of the betting episodes. I had a poll on Instagram just last week, and over 90% of you said that you wanted to see some NBA betting content with the season kicking off. So here we are. I'll be giving you my favorite futures as the season resumes in Orlando. How my betting post will work for the rest of the season. I'll generally be posting every single day my favorite bets based on the games, over-unders, my favorite side bets. And then also at the beginning of playoff series, at the end of the regular season, as we start into the playoffs, I'll be probably doing other videos in the future with my favorite futures bets, who I think is going to win certain playoff series, if there are good odds or good lines to win the West, to win the East, to win the finals. I'll be giving you all of those. So for this very first edition, I'll be kicking off with my favorite futures that I think are great bets going into the regular season in just 2 days. So my top futures, I'll start with number one. I like the Brooklyn Nets under 2.5 wins as we go into Orlando. There are a few reasons why. The biggest is the Brooklyn Nets have a pretty challenging schedule, and second of all, their roster is just completely depleted. Starting with the roster, besides Kevin Durant, the Brooklyn Nets are missing 6 other starters or significant contributors. Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Jordan, Spencer Dinwiddie, Taurean Prince, Wilson Chandler, and Nicholas Claxton are all out. The Brooklyn Nets are building a team around their 3 remaining starters, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and Joe Harris. And if you look at the rest of the guys that are on the roster, the backcourt consists of Garrett Temple, who played a pretty nice bench role for them on the season, Tyler Johnson, a guy that they just signed, just acquired for Orlando, Timothy Luau-Cabarrot, who played pretty sparingly off the bench for them this season, Justin Anderson, who was in the G League, Chris Chiozza, who's only here on a 2-way contract, Jeremiah Martin, who's also only on a 2-way contract, and Jamal Crawford, who was retired and hasn't played in over a year. You look at the front court, Jared Allen is the team's only true big man, their only true center. They only really have 4 other guys on the roster who are going to be front court players. Rodney Carew, Dante Hall, who was in the G League all season, Musa, and then Lance Thomas, who was cut in training camp. None of these names stick out to you at all outside of the starters of LeVert, Allen, and Joe Harris. Honestly, if you look at some of the rosters of NBA teams in the last 5 to 10 years, this is probably one of the worst rosters we've ever seen, possibly worse than any of the Philadelphia 76ers process teams. The Brooklyn Nets have played over 6,300 possessions together during the 2019-2020 season. And if you look at all of those possessions, if you look at the guys that they currently have on their roster moving into Orlando, there are only 11 of those over 6,300 possessions where the 5 guys on the floor were 5 guys that were going to be on the team in Orlando. So there's a huge lack of continuity. You're going to have some guys, the 4th and 5th men in the starting lineup will probably be guys who have barely started or barely even played for the Brooklyn Nets organization. Their 6th, 7th, and 8th man are going to be people who are on 2-way contracts, who played in the G League the entire season, who just got acquired by the Brooklyn Nets. So you're telling me you give this team about 2-3 weeks of training camp in Orlando, and they're going to have to jump in and play 8 regular season games. We're not even talking about the fact that the Brooklyn Nets don't even have motivation to even do well this season. What are they? These guys are really just playing to collect their paychecks, maybe to get some extra endorsement deals or whatever. But the Brooklyn Nets have no incentive. They know they're not going to make any noise. They're not gonna get out of the first round of the playoffs. So what incentive does this team even have to even play hard? I really don't think there is a reason for the Brooklyn Nets to want to play hard, and I really think that this under 2.5 wins is probably the biggest lock that you're going to see. You look at the schedule they have. They play Orlando, Washington, Milwaukee, Boston, Sacramento, the Clippers, Orlando again, and then Portland. Look at the schedule. Washington and Sacramento are really the only games that Brooklyn has a chance of winning. Some of you guys might say they have a chance of beating the Orlando Magic. However, the Magic are currently actually in the 8th seed, and the Brooklyn Nets are in the 7th seed. And the Magic have a huge opportunity to actually hop Brooklyn and not have to play in the playing game. So for sure the Orlando Magic are going to be playing, ready to go. They're going to have their full lineup when they play the Brooklyn Nets in those 2 games, trying to move up. Washington and Sacramento are the other 2 games that we could see them playing. Sacramento still does have some really strong players. They'll have a bunch of guys who are actually on their starting lineup and coming off the bench for them playing. And then Milwaukee, Boston, Clippers, Portland. Those games, Brooklyn has almost no chance of winning those games. And I think when you think about the continuity, when you think about, in my opinion, there are only 2 winnable games on the Brooklyn Nets schedule, the Washington Wizards and the Sacramento Kings, that this under 2.5 wins bet seems super, super safe to me. They play Milwaukee early enough, and it's only game 3 where Milwaukee will be playing their starters, will be trying hard. They play Boston in the 4th game when Boston will still be trying to possibly either hold off Miami or possibly jump Toronto. They're going to play Portland the last game of the season when Portland is going to be really pushing to try to get that 9 seed so they can get a play-in game. So this Brooklyn Nets under 2.5 is my favorite bet and one I think that everyone should be hammering and jumping onto. You can find it about -115 on DraftKings. And now my second favorite bet, my second future, the Portland Trailblazers over 3.5 wins. Now the biggest reason why someone might not want to take this Portland bet or why people would say this is not a good bet is because of a tough schedule that Portland has. They play Memphis, Boston, Houston, Denver, the Clippers, Philly, Dallas, and Brooklyn. How I look at this, like I said earlier, Brooklyn is pretty much a lock. I also think that that first game, Portland versus Memphis, really favors Portland. So I think that Brooklyn and Memphis are 2 games the Blazers should be able to win pretty easily. And that means they only need to go 2-4 the rest of the way. And some of the teams that they're going to be playing, you look at the Clippers towards the end of their schedule, the Sixers towards the end of their schedule, the Mavericks towards the end of their schedule. I don't even know if those games are going to be relevant for those teams. If their seeding is already locked up, they might be trying some new lines, might be trying to rest some of their starters. While the Portland Trailblazers need to win as many games as they possibly can. The Trailblazers have to have at least the same record as the New Orleans Pelicans in these 8 games in order to qualify for the play-in game. So Portland is, every single game is important to Portland. Every single game they want to win. Also, this Portland Trailblazers lineup just has so much experience. They won a Western Conference Finals run last season. They also have both Jusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins coming back from injury. And I think those 2 players returning are kind of the biggest things that is going in Portland's favor. Look at some of the weaknesses that Brooklyn had on offense and defense this season. On offense, they ranked 19th in offensive rebound percentage, and on defense, they ranked 28th. So they allowed the 3rd most offensive rebounds out of any team in the league. However, offensive rebounds are not a problem for Jusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins last season. When Nurkic and Collins played last year, the Brooklyn Nets were 2nd in offensive rebounds. They got the 2nd most in the league, and they allowed the 7th fewest offensive rebounds on the defensive side of the ball. So we've seen that with Nurkic and Collins in the lineup, those 2 offensive rebound problems that we've seen that have been hurting the Trailblazers all season long, hopefully will be fixed. Furthermore, you look at last season's lineup data. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Jusuf Nurkic, when the 3 of them played together, the Portland Trailblazers had a plus 10.1 differential per 100 possessions, which put them in the 95th percentile. And for those of you worried about Jusuf Nurkic coming back, whether he's actually healthy, because he's been out for over a year, in game 1 of the scrimmages, Nurkic put up 14 points, 8 rebounds, on 60% shooting. And game 2 against the Toronto Raptors, who he played some, you think about the Raptors team, Siakam, Marcus Gasol, Serge Ibaka, some really good front court players and players with a lot of experience. Nurkic put up 17 points, 13 boards, 5 assists, and 2 blocks in only 27 minutes. So Jusuf Nurkic is ready to go. Zach Collins is ready to go. CJ McCollum had 19 points in the first half of that second scrimmage game. Damian Lillard. They even have Hassan Whiteside off the bench. They also have Carmelo Anthony in their starting lineup. This Portland Trailblazers team has so much potential, has so much experience. They're proven that the players they have worked well together. And so I think this over 3.5 wins for Portland is another bet that I love. And those are my 2 favorite futures as we head into Orlando. One other thing, this is not something that it's not an official pick, but something that I think is interesting is if you look on DraftKings, you can find the Lakers. Oh, also, really quickly, you can find the Portland Trailblazers at plus 120 on DraftKings. So not only do I think it's a great bet, you're also getting it at plus odds, which is pretty fantastic. Kind of moving on to what I was going to say at the very end. This is not an official play, but I think on DraftKings at least, you have the Lakers at plus 150 to win the Western Conference and the Clippers at plus 180 to win the Western Conference. So I think it's a great opportunity to put a little bit of money on each team. I think it's foolish to believe that there's any team that will be coming out of the Western Conference to represent the West in the finals besides the Lakers and the Clippers. So I think if you're looking to kind of make some money, I think that if you put a little bit on the Lakers to win the West and a little bit on the Clippers to win the West, you give yourself a really nice hedge opportunity and almost guaranteed profit because I really don't think a team outside Lakers or Clippers is going to win the West. Well, thank you guys for joining me on the very first edition of Benj's Bets. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys take these picks. Also, if you're looking forward, if you're a big bettor, if you're looking to make some money over these next 2-3 months, be sure to follow at Your Take Pod. Like I said, I'll be posting my favorite games every single day, as well as more futures going forward. Who I think is going to win playoff series, who I think could win Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals. So definitely stay tuned for more episodes and more betting episodes coming shortly. I hope you guys have a great night. Looking forward to the season starting in just 2 days. If you have any questions about any of these picks, just be sure to leave them in the comments section below. Thank you.